So I've been filming weddings since 2012, and I like to think I've learned a few things on this decade-long journey of wedding filmmaking. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes, which if you're familiar with me and this channel, that's really no secret. So today, instead of talking through all of the good advice for wedding filmmakers, I thought I would just air out all the bad filmmaking advice. So let's kick things off with overusing visual effects in your films. Super 8 overlays, film burns, cross-dissolve transitions. I think these are great assets to consider to create a sense of flair and style to your film, but within moderation. I've seen films that are just beautifully framed, the pacing feels great, and then you're hit with 15 transitions that just take you out of really the emotion from the story. And I think one thing that's really helped me with my edits is just adopting a simplistic approach to storytelling. Just keeping things simple and then adding some flair when it feels appropriate. I think this approach just really helps you dial it back and learn the basics of telling a good story with moments versus trying to tell a story with visual appeal. Don't worry about lighting, just use a Sony. Now, the A7S II was absolutely revolutionary when it was released because of its low light capabilities. And I will say, using a Sony, like a full frame Sony A7S III, definitely will give you some quality results in low light situations, but I don't think it's something that we should use as a crutch and just rely on and not consider external lighting sources. Because I think your wedding films can really go to the next level by getting more adept at lighting. Figuring out how to shape and modify the light in your room to really elevate your frame can do so much for your film. It can help elevate the feeling, add to the emotion, and elevate your production value at the same time. Of course, when done right, because bad lighting can kind of do the opposite. Next is to shoot everything from one angle. Using only one perspective can make your shots feel flat and uninspired, and experimenting with different angles keeps your film interesting and engaging. So instead of just shooting everything from eye level, try to get creative with how you approach your framing. One way that I've been experimenting with this is through low angle shots. These are great inconspicuous ways to approach the day without intruding on the photographer or guests trying to enjoy the day as well. And if you and the photographer are working together and you need to get center frame as well, taking a low angle approach is a great way for you to really create an efficient workflow during that time. You get what you need, the photographer gets what they need, and then you can move on. Next is the longer the video, the better. Now, length does not always equal quality. And I know that I made this mistake super early on because I would get so anxious about how am I gonna fit all of these moments in there that I just create this super long 20 to 25 minute wedding film that was very boring. You want to be concise and tell an empowering story without unnecessary filler. And I know that can be challenging, especially for wedding films, because we feel this need to include everything. But every shot in your wedding film should serve a purpose. Because truth be told, a well-told story, regardless of the length, even if it's a short film, can really serve your couple better than trying to jam all of these moments into one long film. We want to try to create a film that holds a lot of substance and meaning, that ditches the fluff and really gets to the heart of who our couples are. Shoot everything in 60 frames per second. Now, I am calling myself out on this one because I am super guilty of recommending you shoot in 60 frames per second. I'm super guilty of doing this myself for every wedding, but hey, I'm evolving, I'm changing, but I truly believe that each frame rate has a purpose and really helps create a different feeling. And the name of the game really is just being intentional. 24 frames per second is gonna be great for more dialogue-driven moments, such as the ceremony, the speeches, first look, things like that. But for your B-roll, shooting in 60 can provide that variety and flexibility later on in the editing room. I'm starting to experiment and I'm starting to lean away from shooting everything in 60, and you know what? I'm not mad about it. Next is don't outsource your wedding films. Now, I believe this is bad filmmaking advice because I'm a huge advocate for outsourcing. And I think without it, we are subject to burnout and remaining stagnant within our growth. I started outsourcing with Uncut Gems, and it has been a game changer for me in my business, my productivity, and my livelihood. These guys are seriously the real deal, and they have edited some really insane wedding films for me. If you don't believe me, I will link them below if you want to check out their work and quality. And if you feel like testing them out, you can use my code Wayward65 at checkout when you visit uncutgems.com so that you can get 65% off on your first edit. Next is certainly a hot button take when it comes to filmmaking in general, and that is to crank that shutter. Now, I'm not a purist by any means when it comes to cranking your shutter for exposure instead of using an ND filter. I think both of these things will get the job done, and I think ultimately it creates a feeling. So you decide what feeling that you want to create. And I think once you know the rules of filmmaking, you can break them to serve your goals. I'll be honest, I was a notorious shutter cranker. I've still done it occasionally with some of my cameras that don't have ND filters. Now, if my camera had built-in NDs, obviously I would use those consistently. But you know, like I said, I'm evolving and I'm starting to use ND filters more and more because I really do love the feeling that I can create with this tool. And if you're looking for an ND filter, I have some of my favorites linked down in the description below. Jump cuts help your pacing. When I first started editing wedding films, I would feel like I need to include everything, like I mentioned before. But how do you include everything when you have such a limited amount of time? Well, you jump cut. I jump cut all over the place. And honestly, it made my films feel more like a montage than anything with real substance. Jump cuts can be super useful when used intentionally, but oftentimes for wedding films, they really disrupt the emotional flow, break the continuity within your story, and interrupts the pacing. So focus more on creating seamless transitions within your story, and don't be afraid to let moments breathe. Number 9, just focus on the couple. No one else really matters. While the couple is of course the central focus on the wedding day, the day really isn't solely about them. It's also about their loved ones, their family that are sharing in this day with them. And I think if we are ignoring family and guest reactions throughout the day, this can really impact the emotional depth and storytelling quality of our films. Always keep in the back of your mind the importance of reactions because they can add so much to your story, your film, and really the couple's overall experience when they watch their wedding film back. Most couples don't just want to see themselves, they really want to see their family and everyone that was a part of their day. Last is to always rely on your camera's auto settings. While auto settings can be incredibly convenient in certain situations, I don't think it's beneficial to always rely on them because they often fail to deliver that professional quality and creative control that you need to create a beautiful film. Technology is amazing, but it's not perfect. So if you take the time to master these settings manually, you'll have a much higher success rate at creating a beautiful wedding film every single time because autofocus can be inconsistent. Auto white balance can shift your colors dramatically. Auto ISO can create a grainy image. So take control of these settings so that you can create beautiful wedding films for your couples. But that's it for me and my list of bad filmmaking advice. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you found it helpful and valuable in some way. If you did, drop a comment below and let me know what's some bad filmmaking advice that you have received in your career. I'd love to hear from you guys, so until next time, keep creating and telling beautiful stories. Peace.